As TV blunders forward like a blind man stumbling towards a buffet table, some people may lament the idea that the best TV has to offer is behind us, and while I have never presented myself as an optimist, or even provided any evidence of that, I still like to think we need to trudge ahead and assume all will be fine. There's nothing wrong with occasionally revisiting some old favourites, but I watched the BBC pilot series where comedy executives clearly stopped beating about the bush and just said, "We want to live in the past, so we're just going to do all that again." This still isn't as bad as Dave, the UK TV network run by a man who clearly hates his own mother for having the audacity to shit him out so far beyond the comedy golden age, the selfish bitch. I do say Dave is clearly run by a comedy fan who's just decided he'll air and create all sorts of comedy shows, also assisted by his mentally unstable young cousin, who likes Storage Wars for some reason. One of Dave's favourite old shows was Red Dwarf, the cult sci-fi comedy that evolved from The Odd Couple in Space to a full-on Doctor Who-style comedy. I love Red Dwarf. It holds such a special part of my childhood after my parents showed it to me. Well, they showed me the first 6 seasons, and they would always make non-committal sounds when I asked if they ever made any more. I didn't realise at the time that they were trying to protect me. Between series 6 and 7, the 2 head writers fell out, and one decided he'd carry on with Red Dwarf. If nothing else, this continuation proved that the partnership was important, because the quality dropped off dramatically and hasn't been able to return. Series 7 and 8 were just poor. The Back to Earth miniseries a few years ago might be the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity, and then Series 10 a couple of years ago seemed to be a hopeful improvement, and I'm happy to say Series 11 is a further improvement, and actually was enjoyable. Not Series 1 to 6 enjoyable, but since this is the world we're living in now, the very fact I laughed a few times each episode is a nice treat. I always imagine that Red Dwarf is like a stand-up comedian who told a joke that completely killed the room, the good kind of killing. I feel like gun activists misunderstand homonyms. But the stand-up continued their set to a silent room. It's easy to say that they should have ended on a high, but at least there's some laughter again. So it measures up fine relative to its own history, but it actually stands up alright on its own. I mean, don't watch it without having seen the previous shows, but... Oh, and if you're planning on watching the whole thing, do yourself a favour and stop after Series 6. I guess if you sit in this very specific Venn diagram, then you should watch this. But you've probably already seen it anyway. What the fuck am I supposed to do? The episodes in this series range from mediocre to great. You don't care. You either already know that, or you don't even have a horse in this particular race, and you're only watching this video because my voice makes you cum. And fair enough, to be honest, good luck to you. All the cast are brilliant, but quite frankly I fail to understand why there's no Holly of any kind. Red Dwarf is a very personal love of mine, and the fact that this series made me laugh is nice, but the fact that it'll be back again soon makes me lament its place in history. The asterisk next to the phrase "I love Red Dwarf" is growing so much that I'll have to stop saying it soon. This is a spike in quality, but this show peaked last century, and is only lessening its reputation as it carries on. As hard as it is to say, given my personal attachment to it, I'd say unless you can somehow reunite Grant and Naylor, I think we should probably leave this alone now. That personal sentiment has culled off the small percentage of people who watch this for comedy purposes. Now we really are just down to the creepy ASMR crowd I'm for some reason imagining I have. Well, for making it this far, I'll say thanks in what I imagine is a sexy way. Thanks. You're welcome.